I had a friend once who knew me completely. We talked almost every day about everything. Our personalities fit together the way some friendships do when you're young. Like the parts of yourself you haven't quite named yet are suddenly visible because someone else can see them too. We traveled together, cared about the same things, and then gradually I moved on to the next thing, the way I always did. Not dramatically, just the slow drift of someone whose attention had already turned toward the horizon. We didn't lose contact completely. That's the part that makes it harder. We still spoke, but I was moved to the edges of his life without realizing it. And he had stopped being at the center of mine. One day, he told me something. Something that had clearly cost him a great deal to carry, and more to say out loud. And I was glad he told me. I wanted to be glad. But sitting there reading his words on a screen, I understood something I hadn't let myself see before. He had gone through the hardest chapter of his life, and I hadn't been there for it. Not because he hadn't let me in, but because I had already left. The hardest thing wasn't the guilt. Guilt at least has a clear shape. You did something wrong, you know what it was, you carry it. This was something else, because I hadn't done anything wrong exactly. I hadn't chosen to leave. I hadn't decided he mattered less. I had just stopped paying attention, the way you stop noticing a sound that's always there until one day it isn't, and the silence tells you what you lost. I've thought about it a lot since. What actually happened? And what I keep coming back to is this. I cared about him. I genuinely did, still do. But caring and being present are not the same thing. And for a long time, I thought they were. I thought that because the feelings were there, the friendship was taken care of. That love was enough on its own, without the daily work of showing up. It isn't. That's what I didn't know yet. Friendships don't dissolve through cruelty. The ones that hurt most dissolve through simple inattention, through the accumulation of days when you meant to reach out and didn't, through the slow drift of someone whose attention was always already somewhere else. I was that person. And by the time I understood what it had cost, the window had closed. There is a version of this story where I just feel bad about it forever. Where the guilt becomes a kind of residence, where every time I think about him I flinch, and the flinching becomes the whole relationship with the memory. I lived in that version for a while. But at some point, I had to ask myself what the guilt was actually doing. Whether it was serving him or just performing what remorse is supposed to look like. Because here's the thing about judging your past self. You look back with everything you know now, and you expect the person you were then to have known it too. You forget that he was 25 or 28 or whatever age you were when the drift began. You forget that he was doing what his attention knew how to do. You forget that the understanding you have now arrived because of the years between then and there, not despite them. That's not an excuse. I want to be clear about that. What happened had a cost. He paid part of it. That's real. And I don't get to make it smaller by explaining it. But there is a difference between seeing clearly what something cost and deciding that the person who caused it is beyond repair. One is honest, the other is just cruelty with a conscience attached to it. Accountability says, I see what happened. I understand what I failed to give. I want to be different. Cruelty said, I should have known. I am the kind of person who lets people down. I don't deserve to feel at peace with this. One of those leads somewhere, the other just keeps circling. I still think about him. That hasn't changed. But what has changed is what I do when he crosses my mind. I used to flinch and move on. Now I let myself remember what it actually was. The daily conversations, the way we made sense of things together, the specific quality of being known by someone at a time in your life when you were still becoming. That was real. The fact that I failed to protect it doesn't make it less real. And I've learned slowly to hold both of those things at the same time. Forgiveness isn't something you arrive at. I don't think there's a moment where it's done and you can put it down. It's more like a direction you keep choosing. When the memory surfaces and the instinct is to flinch, you can choose to meet it with something gentler instead. To stop punishing someone who already knows. If you are carrying something like this, a quiet failure rather than a dramatic one, the kind that didn't announce itself until it was already done, I don't think you need to keep living in it. The fact that it still hurts means something. It means the friendship mattered. It means you are not the person who didn't care. You were just a person who hadn't learned yet that caring requires more than a feeling. You know that now. That's not nothing. That's the whole distance between who you were and who you're still becoming.